So, first order of business, remember, good image, right? At this point, you've already taken a shot of the person's name, title, whoever is doing the exam, right?
Right.
So here's where we begin. It's called plaques, parasternal long axis. Once again, you can start recording. This is the aorta. This is the aortic root. Top little valve is the right coronary cusp. Bottom one is the non-coronary cusp. This is the left atrium. This is the descending aorta, anterior mitral valve leaflet, posterior mitral valve leaflet, interventricular septum, posterior wall or inferior lateral wall. By the way, this is lung space. If there's ever fluid up here and it's above the ascending aorta, it's called a pericardial effusion. If it's ever in the lung space, it's called pleural effusion. So we start right here and we increase the depth. We wait a couple of seconds and we clip that. It's plugged in, but for some reason, hang on a second. I don't know why the EKG isn't.
It's on.
Anyway, moving on. We'll have plenty of time for that. So you get this. This is your first image. Then you decrease the depth. Think of when I say decrease the depth, I mean decrease the distance between you and whatever you're looking at, all right? So you come about this close. Make sure you can see the anatomy very well. And then you take another video clip. Right after that, oh, come on. There we go. You're gonna do what we call M mode. That's motion mode. It's good for the timing events, but we don't really use it much anymore for anything else. We used to use it to measure, but we don't anymore. We're gonna move it over here to the tips of the mitral valve leaflets. It's gonna look like an M. Then move it over the ventricle. We have what we call systole and diastole. Systole is when the heart is squeezing, diastole is when it's relaxing. See how big this is? Like, this is the interventricular septum, this is that posterior wall. So this is this, and this is this. Got it? So when the heart relaxes, it's called diastole. That's when it's big. When it squeezes, it's called systole. So that's here. So the heart relaxes, it squeezes. It relaxes, it squeezes. It relaxes, it squeezes. You guys see that, right?
Yeah.
So diastole, systole. Diastole, systole, diastole, systole, diastole, systole. We're good? You see this right here? What it did was flatten it out. So this part right here would be that right ventricle. This interventricular septum. This posterior wall. Look at this pericardium right here. Look at that. See? It literally just flattened it out, all right? So we take that. When we're done with that, we're going to zoom in to the aorta. That's this area right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take a video, and then we're gonna freeze. So after we freeze, we're gonna move back to what we call mid-systole. And then we're gonna measure. This is called the left ventricular outflow tract, or LVOT. So we're gonna measure the LVOT diameter. don't worry about what the numbers are, what's normal and what's abnormal at this point.
They do this during OB ultrasounds, right?
Well, not this, but yeah.
Well, yeah, not this, but I'm just.
Yes.
So literal.
Yes. Okay, so now you're gonna measure the aortic root. And that's gonna be leading edge to leading edge. So think of it as the largest part of that little structure. And then from there, we're gonna unfreeze that. And then we're gonna put what we call color Doppler on. That's gonna tell me if she has regurgitation or if like her blood is flowing backwards and going in a direction it's not supposed to be going in. There we go. And then we're gonna come down to the mitral valve and just take a look at that. See, you see the left atrium and the mitral valve, right? Take a video, and then we're gonna put color Doppler on that by itself too to see if her mitral valves are leaking.
Oh, because the color lets you see which way it's flowing?
Correct.
Nice.
Blue is away, red is towards the transducer. Okay, after that, we're now gonna measure how well her heart is squeezing. We call that the ejection fraction. That is the percentage of blood that her heart pumps out every single time it beats. So we're gonna freeze. Remember I talked about diastole when it's relaxing and systole when it's squeezing? Just remember, if you start to forget, in diastole, the heart is relaxing. Think of dilated. When something is dilated, it's bigger, right? Systole starts with an S, which starts with a squeeze, so it's smaller, okay? A balloon, if you fill it up with water, it gets bigger, right? So it's like dilating as you're filling it up with water, and you have to squeeze out the water to make it go back to where it was, right? So that's kind of how, in case you can't remember, just think of those things, all right? So, if you don't have a working EKG, diastole, I'm gonna go back to 1B. Remember I told you guys we will talk about blood flow, right? Like I think I told you guys it was important to remember the Dr. Grimes situation, and you guys said she did talk about that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna start. Oh, let me go back. Hang on, you guys. I'm just trying to find one I like. Okay. Okay, so I need you to follow me. This measurement we're about to do has to be done in one heartbeat. It has to be one heartbeat. So I'm gonna explain to you guys what's going on here, and we're going to use one heartbeat. Remember, the blood comes from the lungs through the pulmonary veins and back into the left atrium, yes? So the blood just entered the left atrium, right? So eventually, it's going to push the mitral valves open so it can head into the left ventricle, right?
Yes.
And then from the left ventricle, it's gonna go out to the aorta, right? So you see the blood that's in here? We're just following this blood cycle. It has to be just one. So which means when the mitral valves open and close, they cannot open again because it's a new cycle. Once this aortic valve opens and closes, it cannot open again because it's a new cycle. Got it? Okay, so we're starting here. In end systole, this blood is what we're following. So, I'm now gonna, the valve opens, right? From the minute it opens, diastole has started, okay? As in the blood is now leaving the left atrium, heading to the left ventricle. We're good so far, yes? It opens, opens, opens. By the way, this is early diastole. We're gonna get to diastasis right here in just a minute. It's gonna look like it's gonna close, but it won't. See? It went like this in early diastole. It kind of closed, it opened, and then it finally closed, right? So right here is when the pressure in the left atrium and the left ventricle are equal, okay? So we're gonna be talking about this in class, so I wanted you guys to already understand what's going on in here. So remember we started in end systole, right? This is the blood we're following, correct? Once this opens, the reason why this opens is because the pressure in here was so high, it forced the valves open. So it's not, these didn't open automatically, the blood in here forced it to open. It got so heavy, if you're standing on a trap door, and the trap door can take up to 200 pounds, as long as you're under, it won't open, right? But if 5 of you stand there, it'll force it open. Same concept. So, the blood forces the valve open, okay? When we get to this diastasis, where the pressure is equal here and here, the heart is now going to try to push out this last bit of blood to take it to the ventricle, okay? Now watch how it's going to happen. See, it's going to squeeze. You see how the atrium is squeezing? See that? We're following, right? And then it's going to snap shut. Boom. The blood in here is now in here, okay? We're still following one heart cycle. So this blood now, we want it to leave. This is end diastole, when this snaps shut, but before this opens. Got it? So you're gonna measure what's in here, because this number is what we're going to use to get the ejection fraction. So we want to know how much of this blood left. That's how we're going to be able to tell if she has a normal ejection fraction or not, which is the percentage of blood her heart pumps out every single time it beats, okay? So the first thing we're going to measure is 3 things. This wall, this entire chamber, and this wall, okay? We want that measurement to be at the tips of the mitral valve leaflets. See that? I opened it back up so you guys could see the tips of the mitral valve. See that? So at the tip is where we're gonna be at. So I'm gonna hit measure. We're measuring the interventricular septum. We're measuring the internal chamber of the left ventricle, left ventricular internal chamber dimension. And we're going to measure the posterior wall or inferior lateral wall. Notice how it's like in a straight line, right? You want that. So I'm going to take that. All these numbers have to amount to something. Okay. Do you see 0.76, 0.73? For a woman, as long as it's under 0.9, it means she's normal. This left ventricular internal dimension in diastole, hers measured 4.82. That's also normal. I just kind of wanted you guys to know. So we're going to take that, and now we're going to measure end systole. So we're now wanting this aorta to open. Got it? Because the blood that's in here, we want it to leave. Remember, we're still part of that one heartbeat. So I'm going to open it. You guys saw it fly open, right? So we're watching it until it snaps shut. Remember, this cannot open again, okay? Because the blood that was in here is now in here. Now it started to leave when this snapped open, right? So, notice how it's getting, the ventricle is getting smaller, right? While the atrium is getting bigger, right? See that? Because while the blood here is leaving, the blood is coming back from the lungs to come back into the left atrium so the cycle can begin all over again, okay? So, we go, the minute that aorta snaps shut, see this? It's very thin, but it just shut. We do not want this to open again, got it? That is the end of that heart cycle. So what we're gonna measure now is just in here and in here. So how much left is what's gonna give us her ejection fraction. LVIDS. We're still at the tips of the mitral valve leaflet. And then I'm gonna measure what's called the left atrium, or the LA. That is leading edge to leading edge. The chamber is what I want. I'm gonna take that. Now, do you see these numbers? This is called the Teichholz method. Anything over 55% is normal for both men and women. So her heart is squeezing and relaxing properly, okay? So, we take that. Now, one more thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna move up a rib space on her to get her ascending aorta. That's the do you notice now how the heart is more shadowed, but you can see a long little tube here? You guys see that?
Yeah.
That's her ascending aorta, okay? I'm gonna freeze that, and I'm gonna measure that. What I wanna see is whether or not she has an aneurysm.
Let's hope not.
No, you don't know. Might be a small problem.
That would be fun to find out.
I know.
At least we're in a hospital.
Yeah, but no aneurysms here. You are well under the number. You'd have to be at like a 4.0 or something like that. So you take that. Now, that's all I'm gonna be expecting of you guys for this. You can stop recording with that.